So we've seen many arguments from the Brexiteers as to why they don't want a second referendum. The first one is that, well, they just don't really want one. That's generally it. First of all, because of, well, what's been going on for the past 3 years and the amount of new information that has just come out. In fact, literally on Friday, the Swiss in 2016 had a referendum which their Supreme Court has decided to overturn because they've deemed that the public was not informed enough to make a decision on that topic. That's happened in another country. So why can't we then, now 3 years on, now decide to, well, let's see if we actually still want to go ahead with this? And now that we know, for example, that the Brexiteers who were pushing this really wanted a no deal, this sets up even more alarm bells. Because even if, let's say, dream of dreams that the Brexiteers get Boris Johnson in, and Boris Johnson decide, well, we're not going to have this, we're going to leave. He can't, because Parliament will not allow him to do it. So that's off the table completely. He will be forced to either go, well, you have to back the withdrawal agreement that, you know, Theresa May did, and now I've got to push it. So he's left with pushing that boulder up that hill is not going to fly with people. So even then, and they've come out and actually said this, Brexiteers, MP Brexiteers have actually come out and said this, that we can go and say, oh yes, that'll be fine, and then renege on these promises later. That is not something that a country should be doing. It's absolutely insane. But the big reason why they don't want it, and this is, I think, the first time I've actually ever seen this properly written down, and in, you know, newspaper form, well, it's on politics.co.uk, but it's one thing that I've said before on this channel. Title of the piece is Brexiteers oppose a second referendum for one simple reason: they'll think they'll lose. A lot of my this is by Alexandru. I think he's a Labour MP by the sounds of it. So a lot of my colleagues want to stop Brexit. Labour MP, oh no, he's not. Labour MP Lisa Nadia told Sophie Ridge yesterday. They don't say that they want to stop. They don't say they want to stop Brexit. They say they want a second referendum. It's a legitimate, if a bit tired, argument that deserves a more elaborate answer than well, duh. And yet it's just trotted out practically every time a journalist interviews a supporter of a people's vote, as if we're somehow a huge revelation. The reverse point, however, is almost never made, but it has made even more profound democratic implementations. It will be childish to deny that many who advocated for a vote on the final deal do so in the hope of reversing the result of the 2016 referendum. If this is a conspiracy, it is the least secret one and most explicitly stated one in history. We do not operate a system of democratic centralism, a notion which reached its peak under Stalin. Where the moment a vote is taken, dissenters are expected to instantly change their mind and support it fervently in the very thing they previously considered a horrible idea. It is illuminating, however, to observe how rarely the opposite point is made. A lot of the people who resist any call for a people's vote do so because they know there is a high probability they would lose it. There is an equally true and equally obvious but almost never mentioned. The admission is embedded in every single accusation that proponents of such a vote are planning to stop a Brexit. A public vote could not stop Brexit unless the people voted to do so. That has democratic implications too. It means there is a significant slice of opposition to a people's vote who oppose it in either the full knowledge or at least a very reasonable expectation that there is no current mandate for what they propose, that their only chance to get Brexit is to pile drive their project through through based on a 3-year-old instruction that that in the face of a majority opposition is that democracy. The cost of another referendum is roughly around 100 million. It is relatively tiny. Food retailers last week estimated that they are spending that every single week in extra stockpiling and warehousing costs, costs which will be in part or whole passed on to us. The legitimacy of the campaigns is hardly ever mentioned in this context, and the clear misinformation is not addressed. Never mind that voters were manipulated and their consent unlawfully influenced. The culprits have long scarpered to the backbenchers to plan their leadership bids. They will not be held to account. It is politically prickly, so a tacit collusion has been reached by both the front and backbenchers not to handle it. Instead, they weaponise the will of the people in order to push their own version of what it means. They fetishise those voters we hear so much about, who never voted before and will never vote again unless we deliver their one-time instruction. Why is their vote worth more than people who understand political involvement as a civic duty and vote every time? Why is it worth more than the preference of 2 million young people who can now vote but couldn't in 2016? Why is it worth more than the vote of 5 million EU 27 citizens in the UK and UK citizens on the continent, most of whom wanted to vote but were disenfranchised? Slice it however you wish, the fact still remains. At the moment we exit the EU, there will be a majority either for or against the manner in which we will do it. The actual way, not the fantasy of the easy deals and the sunlit uplands, but the hard facts of backstops, customs unions, agreements, divorce payments, and the economic impact. If people still support this, they can vote for it. It will, at the very least, confirm to Ramonas like me that there is informed consent. But if they don't, they can stop it. They should be allowed to suggest that it is somehow more democratic to press ahead with a plan of action because you fear people don't support it anymore is simply nonsense. A vote on the final deal is a democratic win-win. The will of the people is incapable of being betrayed by the will of the same people. It is changing. Is calling changing your mind, and is incapable of any proper, and it is integral to any proper democracy. So, yeah, once again, couldn't agree more. If there is, as suggested, a vote on the final deal, then Remain should always be an option on the ballot paper. If it comes down to Theresa May's deal or a Remain, that should be the vote, because there is then an actual plan in place, not the Brexiteers' fantasy of saying, well, we'll stay in the customs union and the single market, or no, we'll just leave the single market but we'll remain in the customs union, or no, we'll leave the customs union but we'll remain in the single market, because that's what they were doing during the referendum. They were selling every version of Brexit they could to try and get as much support as they can, and that's where we are. That's part of the problem, because, as I said literally on Monday, if you took those 17.4 million people and got them to vote on what they wanted, you wouldn't reach a consensus. No deal wouldn't be voted for because no deal wasn't even talked about in the referendum. That wasn't even countenanced. The people who were pushing no deal, Patrick Minford, was laughed out of the campaign. He was kept at arm's length by both the official and unofficial campaigns. So there we have it, and the guy's right. Why is this idea that we should cherish these people who voted for the first time ever, and this is the only time they've ever voted, why should their vote be worth more than people who are politically active and engage and understand it is their civic duty to vote. Why is their vote worth more than people who vote all the time since they've been 18? Why is that the case? Someone explain that to me. But there you go. And he makes another very good arguments in that article. But I'm sure we'll get some very nice responses from some intelligible Brexiteers below.